What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Top Dogs podcast here on the Field of 68 Media Network. The bracket is here. The bracket has officially been unveiled. I just finished talking through the entire bracket on our Field of 68 selection show. I was on there for an hour and 15 minutes with Randolph Childress and Terrence Oglesby. I tweeted this out before we got on live. I think that this was the worst possible first pod draw that UConn could have gotten. And I got a little pushback from that. And what I meant by it was that I think of all the teams that could have gone on the 13 seed line, knowing that UConn was probably like in that 3-4 seed range, all the teams that were in that like 13 seed range, the ones that I'm most concerned about, the ones that I think are the worst matchup for UConn is Iona and VCU. And the reason for that is because both of those teams like to get out. They like to pressure the ball. They like to really heat it up defensively. They like to try to force turnovers. We know what VCU does. We've seen what Rick Pitino has done. This is the way that they want to play. And that is what, to a point, UConn's Achilles heel is. Now, there's a lot of context there, right? I think Marquette is terrific at getting out and pressing and getting out and pressuring the ball and getting out and taking you out of your offense and really forcing you to start running your sets a long way away from the rim. They also know every single thing that UConn wants to run, and everybody on that team is used to having to defend the way that UConn plays. Like, there's a lot of guys that played last year for Marquette. That was the third time that Marquette had played UConn. They've seen them before. They know those sets. They know those plays. They know what they want to run. They know how Jordan Hawkins is going to run off the screens. Like, none of that stuff was a surprise for them. It's going to be a little bit different the first time that you see UConn because of how elaborate their schemes are. I also think that there is something to be said about the size of Tristan Newton against the size of some of these guards. It's a little bit more difficult when you have that guy up underneath you and he can kind of take it away from you. But I do think that there is some advantage playing against competition that is going to be that's not going to have the same kind of size, same kind of physicality, same kind of athleticism. All right, so let's get into the specifics. Let's go to first and foremost. I want to start with this. If you really want to go get a full breakdown of what Iona is, we did something called Courting Cinderella. It was a series where we talked to head coaches from every single one of the conferences. You know what? Well, this is going to be a stream of consciousness podcast today. This is going to be one where we just kind of go. So instead of doing that, instead of telling you about it, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take the audio from our Courting Cinderella series, and I'm going to drop it directly into here right now. Shout out to Dan Engelstad, a guy that I've known at Mount St. Mary's for a long time. He was in the MAC. They played Iona tough this year. He jumped on. He spent about 5 minutes with me breaking down the Iona Gales. We're going to get to that right now. Welcome back to another episode of Courting Cinderella here on the Field of 68 Media Network. I have Dan Engelstad, the head coach at Mount St. Mary's, and we are going to be breaking down the Iona Gales and head coach Rick Pitino's team as they are heading back to the NCAA tournament. And Dan, let me start you with this. When I texted you about this, you said Iona is not a Cinderella. What makes them so good?
Their backcourt is elite. You know, if you're going to win games in March, you got to have a backcourt that can hold up against anybody. And Dennis Jenkins and Walter Clayton, in my mind, can play with any guards that are in that tournament. They're tough. They're relentless. You can tell they're about the right stuff. They play both ways of the court. So I think it's led by their backcourt. But their front court is enormous. You know, they will put 7-footers on guards and feel comfortable with them guarding them. They have Nelly Joseph, who's been in a lot of games and, won big games and not afraid of the moment. And then they have a 7-foot four-man in Shima, who is somebody that can stretch the floor, make threes at a pretty darn high clip and make big ones. He was able to make big ones against us this season. And then they got athletic wings. don't get tired. They're not overly deep, and I think that would probably be Coach Patino's biggest hurdle is just their depth isn't great because they've had some injuries, but I think a few guys might be coming back, it looks like. But it's just their size can overwhelm you. They have great guard play. They press for 40 minutes, and you better be ready to handle the basketball. And they have that great blend of inside-out play. So, and they have a Hall of Fame coach, so they're going to put you in good position. So it's just it's a really good basketball team that doesn't have many holes.
When I think of Rick Pitino teams, I think of that like 2-2-1 press that we saw out of Louisville when they made that run to the national championship. I think of them trying to force turnovers. I think of them playing that kind of like amorphous defense where you don't really know if it's man, you don't really know if it's zone. Sometimes it's both on different sides of the floor. Sometimes it's both in the same possession. What do we see from them defensively this year?
Yeah, they're going to pick up. Like I said, they're going to press you. Not as much zone pressure, a lot of man-to-man pressure, and just try to wear you down. They will be very active. They will try to steal through on passes. So you just got to be able to handle that. I mean, it's going to be from the very beginning. It's going to be on sideline. I mean, so they just try to wear you down. And then so not as much of the zone. I mean, they'll sprinkle in a little bit, but it's more so man-to-man. They're going to switch a lot. And like I said, he feels comfortable with putting bigger forwards on guards because they can move laterally, and so it's hard to get stuff in the paint because if you're going to try to beat matchups, they're going to be able to use their size and athleticism to not allow easy post passes in there, and their guards are physical enough where they can hold their own. So it's a tough out for anybody just because that defense is relentless, and it's hard to get it into the paint.
Hey guys, just a reminder, our sponsor for today's episode is Run Your Pool. They are hosting the Field of 68 Bracket Challenge. This year, they are giving away $1,500 in free prizes. It's all an incentive for you to get on there and find out just how good their platform is. I've been using them for my bracket pools for years. I've used them for Super Bowl squares. I use them for everything that I need to use them for. The biggest survivor pool that I'm in for both NFL and NCAA tournament is by Run Your Pool. So go check them out. The link's below. Tap in. They look like they're probably going to end up on that like 13, 14 seed range, somewhere around there, which means they're going to end up with a top 20 team in the tournament when this bracket gets released here in about 2 hours. So do they have the size, the length, the athleticism? Like, are they going to get kind of overwhelmed when you get to that higher level and maybe some of those bigger, higher major players?
I really don't think so. I mean, we've played high major opponents this year, and I think they can match up size for size. It might be some depth on certain teams that could give them issues, but I do think their guard play can hold up, and I think in the interior, they got 7-footers that are out there stretching the floor, and they got 6'11" guys that are mobile and athletic, and not going to back down. And then their wing play, they very athletic and long, and so it looked like a couple guys that hadn't played might be getting healthy too, which could help them out a little bit as well.
What is the ideal matchup for them? Is it someone that maybe has a point guard that's a bit turnover prone? Is it a team that's maybe a little bit less athletic? Like, what kind of team do you think they'd be able to take advantage against?
Yeah, any team that doesn't have multiple ball handlers. I think you can't just have one guy that can dribble the basketball. You've got to be able to break the press with multiple guys. You may have to use forward at times to get the release. So just having multiple ball handlers is critical. And then you got to have guys that can guard ball screen. They do run a lot of ball screen, and they run really good actions, but they are able to shoot the mid range as good as anybody that we've played against. Dennis Jenkins is somebody that, when he gets to his 15-foot pull-up, it's really good. And those are shots that we, in our defense, usually want guys to shoot. But Walter Clayton and Jenkins, they make it look easy, and they can make it look effortless as time as their ability to raise up and make tough twos. So, it's going to be interesting to see, how they stack up against, like you said, if they're going to play a top 20 team. But I've got a good feeling those guys are going to be up for the challenge.
One thing we know about Rick Pitino teams is they're always going to be ready to play in March. Dan, I appreciate you jumping on with me. I'll let you go now so you can get back to the pickleball courts.
Thanks, Rob. See you, buddy.
Oh, what a finish! Buy a new home beats grow my business at the buzzer. Webster Bank is offering you a chance to win a trip for two to the Men's College Hoops Finals in Houston. Just pick your biggest goals for 2023 and enter today at webstergoals.com. No purchase necessary. Ends 3/25/23. Must be a legal resident of Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, or New York, and at least 18. For rules and details, visit webstergoals.com. Webster Bank, N.A., member FDIC, equal housing lender.
That was Dan Engelstad, head coach, Mount St. Mary's, breaking down Iona. So you kind of get an idea of who they are and what they are. If UConn can get by Iona, I think that they have a great matchup with St. Mary's in the second round and a nightmare matchup with VCU in the second round. VCU is the team that I think is going to give them the most problems because of the way they can pressure the ball, because of the size and athleticism on that roster, because they kind of play the way that UConn wants to play. The good thing is that what we're ignoring right now is the impact of what UConn can be defensively when they are at their best. Okay. UConn is one of the best defensive teams in college basketball when they play the way that they want to play. And I think that what we've seen, especially in the non-conference, especially in some of these smaller programs, is that they can just overwhelm you with their length and athleticism. That's not something that they did a ton of during Big East play. But I do think it's something that they can do against an Iona and something that they can do against the VCU and a way they can kind of take advantage of it. Also, they're going to get to the offensive glass. That's one thing they do very, very, very well. And if there's an issue that Iona has, they are not a great defensive rebounding team at all. UConn is going to be able to get a ton of second chance points there. So that's where I kind of feel good about the matchup and less concerned about the way that that's kind of shaping up in that first round. But I think big picture, this is the way that I kind of view it, right? UConn right now is a top 5 team on KenPom. UConn is a team that a lot of people are going to pick to make a run in this tournament. UConn is a team that on paper has the talent to be able to win a national title, right? It doesn't mean that they're guaranteed. Like, no one's guaranteed here. They are in a normal season. Let me phrase it like this. They are a top 4 team on KenPom right now. They're a 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. I think that in a normal season with a normal level of talent around the country, they are about what you would expect a 4 seed to be in terms of how good they are and some of the issues they have. But just because there's no great teams in college basketball this year, we're kind of looking at them as a chance to have a team that can make a real deep run. Teams that are that good should take advantage and should be able to take care of business. St. Mary's, VCU, 2 teams that are high major programs that don't play in high major leagues. That's another game. No matter who UConn would end up playing in the second round if they get there, that's another game they should absolutely be able to take advantage of. They absolutely should be able to find a way to win that game. I don't think that it's something where I think it is, all things considered, I have 50% chance they find a way to get through. But I just know the way. No matter what happens, I'm probably going to be on Iona to cover. And if they play VCU in the second round, I'm probably going to be on VCU to cover in the second round. Big picture in terms of the rest of the region. So I'm not as high on the Hogs, or I'm sorry, I'm not as high in the Jayhawks as a lot of other people are this season. I think that Arkansas is very good at exploiting matchups. And they have the size in the backcourt to take advantage of DeJuan Harris. I will be on UConn to beat Arkansas if they can get to the second weekend. I don't know if UConn can beat Kansas. Kansas is a damn good basketball team. And while they're not a team that's going to get out and pressure you, they got a guy named DeJuan Harris at the point who is one of the best on-ball defenders in the country, and a guy named Kevin McCullough who is as good as anybody at running off screens. And if I'm Bill Self, I switch those matchups. I let DeJuan Harris chase Jordan Hawkins everywhere that he goes, and then I put Kevin McCullough on Terrence Shannon. Terrence Shannon. I put Kevin McCullough on Tristan Newton and dare him to try to beat me off the bounce. And that's the way that I play, and that's what I do. I use KJ Adams to guard Andre Jackson, and I just leave him in the lane and play 1-on-2 against Dama Sanogo. So I like Bill Self being able to win that matchup. But other than that, I think it's wide open. You know, I think the bottom of that bracket, I think TCU probably beats Gonzaga. I'm not scared of Gonzaga this year. UCLA is missing Jalen Clark, and they may be missing Adeem Bona, which is 2 of their 6 best players. So that's wide open. The one red flag will be if you play Gonzaga in Las Vegas, that's going to be a Gonzaga home game. You're going to be playing on the road. They travel very well out west, and they travel very well to Vegas. But I think that UConn can handle TC. Like, there's no one in the bottom half of that bracket that I look at. I'm scared of if I'm a UConn fan. It's Iona's a tough matchup. VCU is a tough matchup. St. Mary's is a very good team that's probably a little bit overseeded. And then you got Kansas and Bill Self, the reigning national champion in the region. So I think it's very possible for UConn to make a Final Four. When I put together my bracket, what I just talked about on the field of 68, I think that UConn can get to a Final Four, and I think that they can find a way to win a national title this year. I would say they're one of the probably 6 to 8 favorites to be able to do that. I think it's just not the easiest bracket that I've ever seen, not the easiest draw that I've ever seen, and it's going to take a little bit of luck to find a way to be able to get that done if it's going to end up happening. But look, I'll be rooting for it. It's going to be awesome. I'm going to be out in Vegas at Stadium Swim for the second weekend, so I really, really hope I'm going to be able to see Dan Hurley and the boys play out there in Vegas, maybe lay a couple bets. Who knows? There's lots of sportsbook out there, so we'll find a way to make it happen. But for now, that was a little bit of a stream of consciousness, but I just wanted to put that out there and kind of get those thoughts out into space. So for our partner Bet Rivers, for our partners Webster Bank, make sure you go and you sign up at Run Your Pool. Make sure you go and you download the Vaulted app. If you really like supporting the Field of 68 and Top Dogs, make sure you support our sponsors. That stuff really does help. So for now, I'm going to sign off, and I'm going to go back to producing a lot more of this NCAA tournament prediction preview, bracket preview content.